Welcome back. This is the 7th installment of our golf lessons here at Water Gap Country Club. Today we're going to be talking about the short game, chipping mainly. We're going to show you a couple different shots and how changing the ball position can actually make a difference in how your ball not only flies, but when it lands on the green, how the ball spins. We're going to run you through the bump and run, and we're also going to run you through the check and release. So let's get started. First we're going to talk about the bump and run. Now the bump and run is a shot that is played very much like a putt, but yet you still use a mid-iron. You want to use something like a 6, 7, or 8 iron. I have an 8 iron here, and the idea behind this shot is that what I'm going to do is actually take a putting stroke, okay? And when I actually hit the golf ball, it's going to come off very low, and once it hits the green, it's really not going to spin. It's going to roll out like a putt. Now the bonus to this shot is exactly that it's rolling like a putt. If that happens, that usually means we have pretty good odds of the ball rolling at a decent speed by the hole and possibly chipping it in. When you get to a sand wedge, which we're going to see in a little while, that ball doesn't roll as much, so your accuracy as far as rolling it into the hole isn't as good, but sometimes your distance control is better. When we start with the bump and run, what we want to do is we want to keep our feet very, very close together, okay? What this does is it promotes a steeper angle of attack. This will promote a slight amount of backspin. The next thing we have to remember whenever we're talking about chipping is the 3 lefts, okay? A, we need our weight on our left foot. B, we need our hands pushed towards the left side, okay? And when we swing, we want to pull through with that left hand. If we do those 3 things, those 3 lefts will pull off good chips every time. As far as ball position goes, we always want the ball over the center of our chest when it comes to bump and run. So when we set up, it's right in the middle of our stance, okay? My weight is to the left side. I could pick up my right foot off the ground so I get that weight on the left. I'm going to push my hands forward, and when I go and take this shot, I'm actually going to pull through with my left hand. So when I hit this shot, really what I'm doing is taking a putt, something like this. Okay, now we're going to get into what's called the check and release. Now for this shot here, I am using a 60-degree lob wedge. You can use anything from a pitching wedge, gap wedge, sand wedge, or a lob wedge. It's more of a preference. This has got 60 degrees aloft, and what this is going to help me do is send the ball up in the air, and when it lands on the green, it's going to check or slow down using backspin, and then release out to the hole. Now the neat thing about this shot is if you change the ball position in your stance, you can actually alter the way the ball is going to fly. So first we're going to start with your standard check and release, then we're going to move into a lower lofted check and release, and then a higher lofted check and release. So for starters, when I step in here, I'm going to step in here the same exact way I stepped in for a bump and run. My feet are going to be close together, my weight's on my left side, I'm going to push my hands towards my target to the left, okay? Everything is still left, okay? When I get in here and I set up, now the ball position is going to be slightly behind center, okay? It's going to be on my right foot. It's not behind my foot, but it's on it. This is going to create a descending blow, which then creates the backspin. So if I set up where my weight's on my left, I push my hands slightly forward, and I take that same exact putting stroke, you get the result of a check and release. Okay, now we're going to get into a lower lofted check and release shot. Now anytime you need to hit the golf ball lower, the key is to move it back in your stance towards your right foot. So when I step in now, what I'm going to do is actually make sure that the ball is behind my right foot. By doing this, what I'm creating is a lower lofted club with the same iron. So for this 60-degree shot here, now I've de-lofted the club. It's actually going to create a lower shot, but the club is still shorter than using an 8 iron, so it's going to have a little more control and probably better feel than an 8 iron, okay? So we're still not doing a bump and run. This is a check and release, but now when I lean to my left, I'm actually going to really swing down through the ball and keep that trajectory nice and low. By doing that, the ball will still spin when it hits, but it'll have a little more velocity, so it'll roll out a little farther, and I still won't have to swing that hard. Now we're going to talk about a higher lofted check and release shot. Now how we do this is when we set up at the golf ball, we're actually going to keep the golf ball's ball position just in front of center, okay? What this is going to do is it's going to open up my club face, probably adding about 3 to 4 degrees aloft to the club. So now I'm looking at a 62, 63 degree wedge, and I'm going to keep my hands parallel with the ball, not in front. What this is going to do is it's going to send the ball up in the air, then when the ball lands, it's not going to release as far, it's just going to have more spin, almost land on the green with a dead spin. It's not really going to go anywhere. The real key to the shot is to make sure that I swing through, because if I don't swing through, I can actually hit behind the ball and chunk it or come up out of it real quick, and I'll actually catch it thin. It'll be running across the green. So the real key is to make sure you swing through to target, resulting And wrapping up today, let's talk about what we learned. We learned 4 different shots for around the greens. The bump and run with an 8-iron, and 3 shots with what would be a sand wedge or a lob wedge. The middle of your stance, check and release, back of your stance, and front of your stance. These 4 shots will allow you to have some creativity around the golf course. The reason the guys on tour are so good is because when they step up to any kind of a chip shot, they don't have one shot in mind. They have every shot in their book, okay? And what that does is it allows you options. When you have options, you can convert up and downs. So next time you go out to a putting green or in your backyard, try to hit all of these different shots to the same hole and see what work out the best, because one shot is going to work out better than most. That's really the key to chipping. Once you learn that, you're going to become a good chipper and you'll be able to convert more and more up and downs. Tune in next week for putting, where we'll be right here again and we'll be talking about how to knock the ball in the hole after hitting such a great chip.